Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Very warm welcome to those of you who are listening in on Facebook. And good afternoon as well to all our students, our focal students who are listening in. And I just want to firstly say a really, really warm welcome to Roddy Williams, who's with us this afternoon. It's really great you've given us the time to be here. Before we start talking a little bit, I just have two logistical things I want to mention. So we're going to talk for about 45 minutes, and then at the end of this talk, we'll go straight into the masterclass, which Roddy's done with a couple of students. So if you want to listen to that, just stay on. It'll be about 5:45, and it'll just go straight in after this talk. The other thing is we really want to encourage as many of you in the next 45 minutes or so to ask questions. And please don't be shy. And if you're on Facebook, you can send a message, or if you're listening in here, just press on the put your hand up button, and we'll find a way to bring you in to ask a question. Roddy, just to kick off, in a kind of parallel world, it's kind of without COVID, you would have been singing at the RNCM next Tuesday, in a week's time. And
yes.
I'd love just to ask you a little bit, so that you were going to be singing as part of our Original Voices series, this concert with a very intriguing title, actually, which is called She Sings, He Sings, They Sing, which is a bit of a tongue twister to say. I'd love I know it's sort of cruel to dangle this in front of everybody because you're not actually going to do the concert, but we hope you'll come back at a future date. But
exactly.
I'm intrigued by the idea around the program, and maybe you could just tell us a little bit about it.
There are several ideas about the program, actually some of them overt and some of them covert, as you would have discovered if we'd had the chance to do this. But the main thing for me was when I did the Walter Gruner competition in my 20s, maybe just about 30 or so, we had to submit our recital programs for each round. And I submitted a Brahms song called Sapfische Ode. And the message came back, sorry, you can't sing that. That's a woman's song. And at the time, of course, I thought, oh, sorry, how stupid of me. How could I have been so foolish to think that I could sing that? And many years later, I looked at this song. It's a beautiful song, and I loved singing it. My singing teacher at the time had given it to me, and I loved singing it. And I was just a bit put out that I couldn't sing it. And as I got older and looked at it more, I began to realize that there is absolutely no reason why I couldn't sing it. And in fact, I began to explore the idea of lots of songs that are supposedly for men, supposedly for women, that either gender thinks, well, I can't sing that because that's not for me, and began to realize that a lot of these delineations are in our minds only. And I think if I asked anybody of the students to name off the top of their heads song cycles that were written for women, after a while you could begin to piece several together. But the song cycles that we all know was written for men are legion. There's a huge amount of music out there, particularly the great song cycles by Schubert and Schumann, particular, Frauenlied Leben accepted, obviously. And I just thought that everybody should have the chance to sing kind of whatever they like, and to test where the limits are, where we really think, oh, no, that song could not possibly be sung by someone of a different gender. And when you say that with great authority, then I would ask you, or I ask myself, why not? So that was the purpose of that particular recital. And I would be there with Carolyn Sampson, and the two of us were going to sing each other's music. And it was, of course, she's a soprano rather than a mezzo, so there would be key implications. But basically, we were going to ask the question.
Oh, good test for your pianist to play the same song in different keys.
Yeah, Joe's very good at that sort of thing. It just depends where he sits on the keyboard in relation to middle C. It's just.
And we were, just before we came online, we were talking about when we met first, which was a few years back. And when you reminded me, you spilled a pint of Guinness on me, actually. But when I met you first, actually, I knew you as a composer because you had written this fantastic trumpet piece. And actually, I didn't even know you were a singer, and obviously now your career has gone in that direction. But so I know you still write music as well, and do you see yourself as a singer who composes, or a composer who sings, or do you just see it all as part of the same thing?
I think very definitely a singer who composes, and it is also part of the same thing. A lot of the music I've written was a needs must. Arrangements of things. I wanted to do arrangements of spirituals or folk songs or things that I would just write them myself if there wasn't one handy or wasn't one that I enjoyed very much. And the same also for the art songs I've written. Two pop into my mind that came up for the Ferrier competition in 1993 and 4, I think it was. And in the last round of the Ferrier competition and some of the other competitions as well, you are required to sing a piece by a living British composer. And I thought, well, I can write that. I'm living and I'm British, so I'll just write that. And therefore, nobody will know if it's right or wrong when I come to do it. And if I do some extended vocal techniques, whatever, I'll just write it for myself. The first one, for example, I used a very short poem, but just repeated it a lot. So that just meant there were fewer words to learn. I think certainly the Royal Overseas League or one or two of the other competitions began to get wise about this and then put in an extra rule that you couldn't have written it yourself. So I'd like to think I was responsible for that one. But as I look around at my colleagues, a lot of them have hobbies and pastimes. When I say hobbies, things that they're extraordinarily good at. Roger Vinales, for example, is a wonderful artist, watercolors and oils. I know many golfers. Catherine Wynne Rogers knits for Britain. People do all sorts of things in the gaps between singing, particularly when you're traveling and particularly when you're waiting in rehearsals and what have you. There are all sorts of ways in which people amuse themselves. And one of my ways is to write, not because I've got songs or string quartets bubbling out of me, but because I or my friends or now people who commission me need content for things, and so they ask me. It's very flattering. That yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's quite interesting. So someone called Ross sent in a question asking just about that, asking about hobbies. He said he'd been given advice that it's good to have something outside music.
Yeah.
I guess to kind of have an escape or to keep.
Yeah, I didn't quite get the memo on that one, unfortunately, because my hobby therefore is within music. But outside of that, I do love walking, for example, or just getting out and about in a place. So while others maybe head to art museums if they're in a new city, I will often try and get out and walk out in the countryside. That's been quite a feature actually over the years. But it's nice to do something just so that you can get out of a rehearsal room and out of the practice room and just breathe.
Yeah. I'm just going to remind everybody, please do put up your hand. Do ask a question. Don't be shy. If there's anything at all you want to ask, put up your hand. I was going to ask you as well, I mean, one of the things that is really impressive about what you do is you seem to have an incredibly broad range of repertoire. You know, you sing Baroque music, you sing contemporary music, you seem to sing a whole load in between as well. And you also seem to flip between opera and song, and you do a lot of work with orchestras. And is there one thing that you feel works particularly well for your voice? So that is the thing that kind of excites you the most, or is it the versatility that works for you?
I think the variety keeps me interested, keeps me alive. For one thing, it's just very exciting to have such a range. I know various of my colleagues who really are only comfortable in the opera world, opera animals, if you like. And of course, if you've got 3 or 4 opera productions in a year, if you're quite busy doing 3 or 4 of them, that's a lot to learn, unless of course you're repeating a role several times. So it could well be that you're singing, I don't know, Tosca, and 2 or 3 productions over 2 or 3 years. So I'd find that, I don't know, I just find that a tiny bit dull personally. And by saying that I like variety, it sounds a little bit as though it was a conscious career choice. But the truth of the matter is, as a lot in my career, it's just reverse engineered. It's the benefit of being able to look at it with hindsight. You think, oh, that was a smart move to be doing so many things. It didn't happen like that at all. Because I was trained as a youngster, as a treble, then going through to my teenage years, I was trained to be a choral singer, spent all my time in church choirs, chapel choirs, and what have you. That's where I learnt about early music. And I learnt consort singing of early music again as an undergraduate. I was a member of I Fagiolini, a 1 to a part vocal ensemble. and we did a lot of repertoire, the sort of Monteverdi and the English repertoire from that sort of time, and right up to the modern day. So I was comfortable singing early opera, not just Baroque opera, but not just the Handel opera, but right early stuff, Monteverdi and even earlier than that. I was comfortable with that because I had learnt to do that as a boy and as a young man. And also because of that training as a choral scholar and then later as a session singer on the London circuit, I was trained as a sight reader. And for that reason, I was quick enough to pick up contemporary music when it was put my way. I didn't have to take it to a coach and spend hours learning it because I could read it quickly. So that, again, was making use of something that was already there rather than sort of trying to specialize in any way. And I hadn't sung seriously in any opera before I was about 30 or so. And about 28, 29, I went to the Guildhall. Boo, I hear you all say. I went to the Guildhall to study on the 2-year opera course there, and suddenly discovered what fun it is to dress in other people's clothes and run around the stage and be someone else for an evening. It was great fun. I'd always been in the orchestra pit when I was at school in the school productions, so I'd never actually been on stage. I just found it hugely liberating. I thought it was great. It's very different from being in the choir schools, and it's a very different skill from sight reading. I suddenly had to do things from memory, and that was very new. So all of that variety kind of occurred naturally rather than my seeking it out, generally speaking, but I'm really pleased that that's the way my life has gone.
Fantastic. Now I'm going to bring in Poppy Smallwood, who I think wants to ask a question.
Speak of you. There we go.
Sorry, I just muted myself again by mistake. Hi, Roddy. Hi, nice to see you again. I was just wondering, and I know you're not an oracle, you don't know what's going to happen after all this, obviously. But I was wondering, when you're talking to younger colleagues, maybe colleagues, I don't know, in their sort of early 30s and in their 30s, how you think their experience and kind of potentially our experience in like starting out in the professional world is going to be different from yours and colleagues of yours who are kind of further on in their career.
That's a very interesting question, and in a way, what I should just do is ask it straight back at you, because I'm aware every time someone asks me how I'm getting on in this COVID lockdown, I'm aware that I have a very blessed, lucky existence here with my family in this village in which I live in the Midlands, with a lot of space in my house, a lot of space in the fields around me, and also a lot of financial space, because I'm almost 55 and I've been doing this career long enough to have built up a financial cushion that can keep me going through the next bit, however long it takes. So, and I don't have a mortgage. That's all been sorted out. Things like that mean that I can afford to be a little bit more relaxed about the uncertainty of what happens next, in a way that many people in different circumstances, but particularly in the freelance world, they don't have that that comfort. And I feel for all such people greatly. I feel for you in particular, all of you students who've put so much energy and training into this particular career to be a freelance singer. It was always going to be tough when you leave the college anyway. But now the rug has been well and truly pulled, and that financial cushion in particular, but all sorts of other life cushions just aren't there. And I think we're all aware that in the national discussions about looking after people, our profession is very low on the list, because it's not particularly visible. And they look after sport very quickly, we can all see that, and then they look after cinema, because that's also, there's a lot of money in that and it's very visible. But our profession, particularly the idea of live performances, of trying to get people to get back in a room together to hear music, that's going to be very long term. I'm pleased to say that there is a lot of groundwork in terms of performance in isolation that's happening now. And as singers, as opposed to instrumentalists, particularly orchestral instrumentalists, as singers, we are ready to perform in a socially distanced way. So next week, I've got a Wigmore Hall recital, lunchtime recital coming up. And it'll be just the pianist, Joe Middleton, and myself on stage. And no audience, of everything online. And this is one of 2 gigs this period for which I'm being paid. Imagine. Everything else I've done, of course, has been fun. I've done stupid videos with my family. We had a lot of fun doing that, but that's for laughs. But this is now actually a singing engagement. And that's new, and we can just see that's happening. The Oxford Leader Festival, which takes place in October, is going to be totally online. So people are beginning to plan for a future, and there is a future. And people such as you may have an even better idea of what you can do next and what is possible than someone like me. And I look at it and I shake my head and say, I can't possibly perform in such circumstances in the future. I don't know what's going to happen. But I've had so much positivity from younger people saying, I don't know, you can use this app, or I will design software, or we will do it like this, and we will take it forwards. So there are some green shoots, but I have to say I'm not brilliantly optimistic just at the minute. We'll see.
Thanks, Poppy. Thanks, Roddy. Could I bring in Joel as well, who I think wants to ask a question?
Hi there. I was quite interested about your He Sings, She Sings project you were planning to do. I've got a song that I'm doing in my end of year recital, which I thought was really lovely, really beautiful. Then looked through the translation and saw, oh, I'm singing about a man here. Do you sing it? Do you change the words to suit your gender, or do you play it as a character? Would you say? Would you sing it as someone else?
Mm.
And when is the point where you go too far? Because you say you can't.
It's fun, and that's a question we need to keep asking ourselves and asking of audiences too. I think. Whoops. Did I just do something really silly? Oh no, there we go. No, sorry everybody. So I'm having my own personal issues here, technical issues, but I'm back now. I very much see it as playing a character in the way that when I sing Winterreise, I play a character. When I sing the songs of travel, I play a character. Certainly, Die schöne Müllerin, when I'm playing the young miller, I'm playing someone a quarter of my age. So that's a character as much as being in opera. But in playing a character, also, I try and find a truth within myself. And that search for a truth in an emotional truth is fascinating as you try and explore someone that is further removed. And it's very interesting for me as a man to try and work out what the truth is of being a woman, or what that means. And I don't know, I really relish being told by anybody in terms of life experiences, you've got that wrong. Or no, not wrong. It's so subjective, isn't it? But just being able to share life experiences, that's part of what we do. So I've just been practicing next door, Frauen lieben und leben, the Schumann, which I've sung a couple of times before and will do again as part of this Wigmore program. And I love inhabiting that piece in the full knowledge that the words and the music were both written by men. So in a weird way, I find myself enjoying might not be the right word, but I find myself relishing the act of fantasy of the two men before me trying to imagine what this young girl might be thinking and feeling in love with this older man whom she begins by revering. And for any of us, Schumann, Akimi before him, the poet, and myself, for any of us to stand up and say, this is true, opens us up to an entire gender saying, I don't buy it. But you could say that of my performance of Winterreise, because I live in a lovely house here, and I sleep in my own bed every night, and I eat 3 meals a day or more. And you might say I wouldn't have the first idea what it is like to be cast out alone somewhere. So I'm and walking through the snow and lots of stuff. So I'm playing a part. And I just think, with Alice Coote having done her Wigmore Winterreise quite recently, and I think Angelika Kirschlager has just recorded it as well. What I'm looking forward to is a time when audiences at the Wigmore, or people I speak to, stop going, oh my goodness, Alice Coote doing Winterreise. Well, I suppose I'll go. Of course, people who heard it on the radio, just relished her singing. And there comes a point when we can drop the whole idea that there's something noteworthy about it. And I think the sooner that comes, the better. And then we can really ask questions about whether the tessitura in relation to the piano part, or something that's orchestral or chamber music, whether the composer wanted that sound higher up with the treble instruments or lower in the bass instruments, where that fits in terms of the harmony and particularly dissonance. We can have a great discussion about that, but it's much more to do with musical values than it is to do with the truth of feeling, it seems to me. Anyway, I after the last 2 times I performed from Leben und Leben in London and in Sheffield, we had a Q&A afterwards, and I was able to ask the audience. It was me asking the questions often, more than the other way around. I was able to ask them how they felt about the experience and what they felt they were missing or whatever. And it was really wonderful to engage with them in that way. And that was also what a part of what She Sings, He Sings, They Sing is going to be about. It was going to be about engaging with the audience kind of during the recital. We'll come again, we'll play.
Thanks very much. I was just going to ask, we actually have a question all the way from Indonesia, from Christian in Indonesia, who's asking about, you were talking about practicing at home, but Christian was asking about, given that often for a lot of people at the moment, there maybe aren't choirs to sing in, or there's limited access to lessons. And have you got any advice around vocal exercises, warm-ups that you do in preparation at home?
I can't really give much advice on vocal exercises as warming up without sounding hypocritical, because I'm time constrained. I'm doing some external exam at the minute, so I just have to fit these things in when I can. So today there was no vocal exercising. I just took the piece, went straight in it. I've only had an hour, and I just wanted to get the work done. So you would see my nose grow longer if I was talking about this and that scale and what have you. For me, part of that question is about practicing in a confined space. I have a thing. I can't really practice properly if I think people are listening. If I think there's someone in the next door room listening, then I won't. I'll begin to perform on some level, and I'm sure we'll all know that idea of trying to get around a particular phrase. Maybe it's a high note, maybe it's a low note, or something in one breath, and you have to do it over and over again to make it work. And when your partner or your neighbor or someone knocks on the door and says, could you move on now, please? Could you do the next bit? That's when I find myself performing and wanting to do a good job and get to the end of a song, just so that the person next door has a nice experience. Well, in order to do that, to not do that, in order to practice properly, I need to feel that I am, dare I say it, in isolation. And in a house like this that's shared, got my family knocking around, I have to find a room that I know is far away so that I can really do the grunt work on it. Before all this lockdown experience, when I lived in London before my children were born, I was able to borrow the keys to a local church that had a big space. And that was quite important to me as well, to make air resonate in a large space. This is very different from rehearsing in a room. This room, for example, is a bit low ceilinged, and you see all the books and stuff around. There's nothing on the walls here. I give myself a headache if I sang in here after 10 minutes. It's just not brilliant for it. So even within the rules of lockdown and social distancing, I think I'd be trying to find a space, a proper space that I can make at the Air Vibrate. Otherwise, when I get to the Wigmore Hall next week, part of the shock is going to be going from a small room to a big place, which we take for granted when we do it often. And it's just going to be a bit weird this time round.
This is where I know you're at home with family. We should bring them in and see if they have anything to say about your
Yeah, how they feel about it. Yeah.
Could I bring in Ralph now, who wants to ask a question?
I just wanted to ask about your comic piece, The Confessions of a Countertenor.
Oh, yes.
What inspired you to write it?
I'll tell you exactly, because that's very easy. I'm not often inspired to write things. I'm often asked to write things, or as I mentioned earlier on, I need to write it for a thing. There might be a program that I'm doing where I've got a gap in a recital. I need a very specific piece, and I can sometimes write it myself. In this case, this was a Ferrier competition entry in '95, I think. And my good mate, Billy Purefoy, countertenor William Purefoy, who lives in Oxford, he wanted to sing something at the end of his Ferrier final program. And he wanted something amusing. I'd sung something amusing myself the previous year. And I think when people see on a program, must be a contemporary piece, we all begin to imagine extended vocal techniques and shrieking and awkward intervals and all that. And I write some of that myself, so I'm not trying to do that down. But I also was aware that in the context of a Ferrier competition, it might be useful to let people relax, let the audience laugh. So Billy wrote to Ned Sherrin, whom I think he knew through Cantabile. Billy sang then and does still now work for a 4-piece a cappella group called Cantabile. He knew Ned Sherrin, asked him if he wouldn't mind writing him a piece, some words. Ned Sherrin produced a piece of A4, which I think I've got in a drawer somewhere. He wrote the lyrics out in biro on a piece of A4, boom, right there. And I set it straight off from that. And Billy ran away with it. He did a fantastic job with it and brought the house down. It's lovely to bring a house down in a competition because we're all so nervous. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do. It's a wonderful thing to get an audience to cry, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to get them to laugh. And if you can do that when you are nervous in a competition, that's then you're on a winning streak. He didn't win, but he's a countertenor, and he didn't think he was going to win.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ralph. I think have we another Joel who wants to come in? Is there a second Joel? Or can we then bring in Sam? Does Sam want to ask a question?
Hi. I remember watching a concert you did at the RNCM a couple of years ago where you did the Butterworth Shropshire Lad.
Yes.
And I was always really engaged by how much you committed to the text more than anything. And I was wondering how you deal with, especially with a lot of English repertoire where the poetry is so dense. For example, I'm learning a Finzi cycle at the moment with words by Thomas Hardy. And 90% of the words, I'm like, I don't know where to begin. I'm wondering, where do you begin with that kind of really awkward text in order to bring it to life as you do with everything else?
Well, a lot of the Finzi copies, the Boozy and Hawkes Finzi copies, have the poems printed separate from the music. And I'm a musician, so I tend to go to the music first. That's what I respond to first. But having done all that and learned how the notes go, having the poetry printed separately is a wonderful thing for me to be able to look at it structurally. And then, particularly with Thomas Hardy, but with various other poets as well, particularly more recent poets than that, then it is A-level English literature, and you just have to get into it. And in fact, I often approach it structurally as I approach another language, German in particular. Sorry, we got canvassing from my family there. And trying to work out in Thomas Hardy, or even I'll go back as far as Dido and Aeneas. I was working on that with a Dido once, and through some of the recitative, and we were just hunting the verb. Just think, is that an adjective, a noun, or a verb? And we're just trying to work out how the sentence actually fitted together. given that poetry is so nebulous, you do, of course, have the chance to interpret it. And your interpretation doesn't necessarily have to be correct. You can get help. You can ask someone. You go on the internet and try and work out what on earth Thomas Hardy actually meant. But in essence, you do have to do that. And I can think of some of the Hardy poems, the Hardy Finzi things, and really getting my hands dirty, working it out. What I would say to anybody is, if in doubt, recite the poem, out loud. Declaim it using your singing skills and using your singing support, and give us your very best Radio 4 declamation of the poem, because that often gives you a clue as to why a composer has set a poem a particular way. Sometimes it will give you a sense that you are at variance with the way the composer has set it. Sometimes you might read it slightly differently and choose to bring out words or emphasis that the composer hasn't necessarily done for whatever reason. Maybe they haven't even spotted the way you read it. But that actually is a quite delicious mismatch sometimes, and that then makes it your interpretation. So good luck with that, Sam. Just keep on digging. Keep digging with that.
Great. Thanks, Sam. I'm going to go to Victoria now. Victoria? Is Victoria coming in?
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. My question is very much related to how do you go about transitioning from song repertoire to opera? And obviously we all know the main differences, but what would you advise especially young singers on tips to perhaps manage the differences?
Yeah. Do you mean that from a technical vocal point of view, or do you mean that in a career choice, or how do you mean?
In a performance way.
Right. Because in many ways, I'm not sure that I consciously change the way I approach either. The main differences, you talk about the differences being obvious, and I guess they are, but do you know what? For me, the main difference between opera and song is the number of people in the room when you're putting it together. So in an opera rehearsal, I've got the conductor who's waving enthusiastically, trying to make me sing in time, and his or her assistant, and then the directorial team and a raft of stage managers. I mean, the room is just full of people, all have their inputs. And of course, there's a language coach who's sitting there as well, taking notes. So there's all these people who have input. When I'm practicing song with a collaborative pianist, it's just the two of us in the room, and I'm doing all those other jobs. I'm directing myself, and I'm making sure I'm giving as good a musical performance as I can by myself. Between me and the pianist, we're taking care of all of that, and that for me is kind of on paper where it finishes. So I can, in your question, I've kind of hear myself asking, God, should I be doing more? Is there a way I should be approaching song that's or opera that's different? And maybe in song, certainly voice and piano song, you are not singing across an orchestra pit in order to reach the first row of the audience. That's different. And you're of course moving around a great deal. That's different. But in terms of kind of almost, and of course, you might be in a costume, but in the way I perform a lot of song, particularly song with narrative, song with character or characters plural, and even in a single song, obviously Earl King comes to mind. All of that experience of being on stage, surrounded by colleagues, playing other characters, being in costume, holding props, being lit, and all of that stuff, and the weeks and weeks of rehearsal, continuous rehearsal, which is a discipline I don't often do when I'm learning song. All of that I try and distill into the way I sing song, and vice versa. When I'm on an operatic stage, I think I probably sing with the same intention, same level of intensity as I would in a lieder recital. You could, if you wished, criticize my operatic performance for being small, because I'm imagining someone watching me as close as a recital room audience would be. I imagine they can see every gesture on my face, and they're close up, even if it's at E&O and English National Opera, that is, sorry, of course you all knew that. And the Colosseum, the audience at the back up high are a quarter of a mile away, whatever it is. But I'm imagining they're watching a very close up performance. And that may not be a correct instinct, but that's kind of me. Does that answer your question?
Great, thanks, thanks, Victoria. Now we actually have a whole load of questions coming in on Facebook, but we don't have too much time left. But I thought I would just throw a few of them your way, Roddy.
Sure.
To perhaps
I'll try and be brief.
Let's have a quick game of tennis or something on this. But so Chris is asking about any advice you have on reducing vibrato. It's a very technical.
Oh no, that's a very quick answer. No. I don't have any advice on reducing a vibrato, and I'll tell you for why. Because I am a singer and not a singing teacher. I think it's a very important distinction, and I think we all know that there are people who really know how to communicate singing, the teaching of singing, the teaching of technique, and they will have a very good answer to that. I feel myself in those fields to be an amateur. My interest in teaching and working with younger singers lies elsewhere. I wouldn't instinctively know what to recommend there. There we are.
Okay. There's two questions from Katrina and David. I think I'm gonna put these together because I think for everybody here, a lot of younger singers, these would be interesting. One was any suggestions on, we have a lot of singers here who are going to go out into their careers relatively soon or in the next few years, and if any suggestions on getting started, what to do. And then also, I guess within that, there's a question about competitions. And are they worth doing? Do they change things for your career? That kind of thing.
Advice on getting started. I think there's a lot of hard work, but patience is what I mean by hard work. I think there's one of the things people notice very quickly is how well prepared you are. So all the things you can do to make sure that you are very lucky is helpful. And when those opportunities come your way, what someone might describe as a break, but maybe not that big, but just an opportunity. If you are prepared and well prepared, then you are in a good position to be able to take that chance and make use of it. Competitions are useful to an extent in that they help you develop repertoire. They help you to cope with failure as well as success, and sort of inoculate you against the inevitable knockbacks. And they give you a sort of British or whatever universal kite mark that you can put on your forehead. People, when they look at your CV, why would your CV stand out from somebody else's? And if it just says he or she got second place in this competition, got audience prize in that competition, or came first in this competition, it's just a very convenient, handy way for people who are short of time, whose profession is to find young singers. It's a very handy way for them to just be able to look quickly and say, oh yeah, that person, they've done such and such and got a toehold there. Some people become very good at competitions and not at performance. So if you find that you're not making any headway in competitions, that doesn't mean that you are on the scrap heap by any means. And we all have our journey. Inevitably, there comes a point for all of us when we ask ourselves, look in the mirror, ask ourselves, is it worth it? I've been slogging away at this for X number of years. I haven't got what I want to get, or I'm not enjoying it anymore. Should I still do it? And that's a very good and valid question to ask yourself. Often people find it's just after they've said no, they get the callback that gives them the Met debut. But that's a weirdness of life, an irony of life. but patience and level-headedness and being prepared, I think, are the things I would recommend.
Great, thank you. I've got two other quite juicy questions, which I thought these are quite nice to ask you. So Mark on Facebook asked a question: who makes the final decision in terms of things like style and ornamentation and tempo, etc.? Is it the conductor or the singer?
That's a very interesting one. I would love to feel in the work that I do that those sort of decisions are made in collaboration. It's not always so by any means. And I, as a freelance musician, I'm very happy to defer to a conductor in such a situation, a music team, even if I think they have made a mistake. If that's what they want, I feel it is my job to do it for them. The best musical experiences are when I trust the conductor, and the conductor trusts me enough that we know that this is a conversation rather than a "this is how it's going to go" sort of thing. And that trust builds, obviously, the longer you are in this profession. But this is part of the being prepared thing. Ornaments, very particularly, imagine in an oratorio and opera, you have your set of ornaments that you've been practicing. If you turn up and the conductor doesn't like them and asks you to do different ones, if you're unable to do different ones, then that could be a situation. So being flexible is part of this job too. And if it's such a moment that the conductor insists on the ornaments and you try them and it's not suiting you, and you are able to convince that conductor through the brilliance of your own ornaments that yours might work better, then that's a terrific moment. But you need to be in a very interesting and particular place to be able to throw the toys out of the pram and say, I think you'll find that my ornaments are going to be the ones. And there are plenty of stories, I'm sure, of people who've thrown a strop on stage, but you might find, unless they're at the top of their profession, that they are not necessarily booked the next time.
Yeah. So I won't ask you if you've ever stormed out of any rehearsals, then slammed the music down.
No, there is once in my life where there was a rehearsal. It was once in my life when I was bopped on the head by a particular composer. When to this day I wish I had walked out of the rehearsal, but in the moment, as I felt the rage boil inside me, I thought my job is to stand here and sing. So that's what I did.
Right. I'm just going to bring in one final question from Facebook, because I think this is quite an interesting one as well for everybody here. So it's from Guy, who asks about if you had the benefit of hindsight, what do you wish you'd known as a young singer entering the singing or the opera world, and what mistakes did you make along the way, if you made any?
Yes, we all make mistakes. Someone just said to me the other day, the person who never made a mistake never made anything. I just think that's something to go on the fridge door, isn't it? And it's a glib thing. I often say it, but I'm going to say it again now. I have gone wrong all over the world. All right, so it's just important to put that down. I have stopped performances at the Wigmore Hall in recitals with memory lapses, and of course lived to fight another day. So that's not the answer to your question, but just to put it out there that going wrong is not a career-ending moment. Benefit of hindsight. I don't, because my career feels like a series of chance encounters and doors opening and me thinking, oh, look, I could go down there and have crossed through the door. I don't feel that there's anything that I have any regrets about. And in terms of hindsight, I would go right back to school and whisper in my 12-year-old ear during German O-level lessons. I would have said, Roddy, pay attention, because you're going to be using German later in your life quite a lot. I was in the bottom set in German and the top set in French, which is a bit weird. Not that shows necessarily in the way I sing now. But I can't think of anything more useful to the people looking now to be able to say, because just thinking about it, I think when chances came my way, I was prepared enough to grab them, and the moment that any job that I think back on with that little turn in my stomach of kind of, oh dear, I only just got away with that one. There may be one or two, and they weren't mistakes. They were me stretching myself and getting out of my comfort zone a little bit, and not always succeeding totally, but learning a great deal about myself, and a great deal about what I can do and what I maybe can't do or needs improvement. And that's just a sheer learning experience. So I don't regret any of that. Do you hear the word cop out by any chance? But yeah.
I thought that was a good answer. I was going to ask, just to kind of wrap up, one last thing I want to ask you, because I know we've got to draw this to a close. Now, I haven't actually asked you this in advance, so perhaps a little unfair, but given the enormous wealth of your experience on stage and the kind of busyness of your career, and given that we've got a lot of young singers here who've got, you know, an appetite to go out and have a fantastic career, is there any kind of words of advice or anything from that experience, that knowledge, that wisdom that you have that you could share?
What I said about being prepared is quite important to me. Also, a feeling that it's really worth taking seriously, and at the same time, don't take it too seriously. It's really important to be able to live as well, which is why I said earlier on that little caveat about this particular profession. If you're not enjoying it, don't do it. And I can sum that up. And I've said this before, probably even in college. I've summed it up by observing that many people, when they see me perform, many audience members in particular, come up to me afterwards and say, "Oh, you really seem to be enjoying that," they say. And I was first taken aback by that. I thought there was a criticism. But then I took it on the chin and thought, no, I seem to be enjoying that because I was enjoying it. I do enjoy it. I enjoy it hugely. And I think you're allowed to communicate that. But that led me to the realization that there must be people who don't enjoy it. And audiences can see that. They're maybe doing the most extraordinary work on stage, on what singing, instrumentalists, pianists, whatever, producing mesmerizing music. But if they're not enjoying it, why are they doing it? So my message to you all, because it's not easy what you're embarking on, but if you think it's worth it, by all means go for it. Just make sure you're still enjoying it.
Roddy, thank you so much. Thank you for your words of wisdom, and thank you for your time as well this afternoon.
Pleasure.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for listening in, to all our students as well. And we're going to go straight into the masterclass now, which is Emir, Caleb, and William, who are going to be singing works by Schubert and Schumann. So thank you very much, Roddy, and it's great to see you, and we'll see you again very soon.
I'll see you all on the other side at some point. See you then. Bye. Good. Well, you've got Auf dem Fluss, is that right? Yeah, excellent. And you've got a backing track to sing too?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Lovely. All right, well, look, let's kick off straight away and let you do that, and then we'll see what happens.
Sure, great.
Lustig rauschtest, du heller wilder Fluss, wie still bist du geworden, gibst keinen Scheidegruß. Wie tagt der starre Rinde, hast du dich überdeckt, liegst kalt und unbeweglich im Sande ausgestreckt. In deine Decke grab ich mit einem Schwittenstein, dem Namen meiner Liebsten, und Stund und Tag hinein, den Tag des ersten Grußes, den Tag, an dem ich ging, dem Namen und Zahlen windet sich ein zerbrochener Ring. Mein Herz in diesem Bache, erkennst du nun dein Bild, ob's unter seiner Rinde wohl auch so Eisen schwillt, ob's wohl auch so Eisen schwillt, mein Herz in diesem Bache. Erkennst du nun dein Bild, ob's unter seiner Rinde voll auch so leise schwillt, ob's wohl auch so leise schwillt, ob's wohl auch so leise schwillt.
Fabulous. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Who's playing for you?
Tim Kennedy. Yeah, many thanks to him if he watches this. Yeah.
Great, great. Thank you. It's always nice to have a human being who play, because then not least in this cycle, because I can think of one number where you happen to be singing in the last bar, even though the piano plays longer than you sing. And in every other song, the piano starts, the piano finishes. So the pianist sets the frame for every single one, and you climb on board. And it's not to. It's just an observation. How much we pick up from the accompaniment in terms of. I mean, they set the tempo. They also work out how quickly you go from one song to the next, or whether to leave a pause. So they take care of the structure and so much. How many of the other songs do you know from Winterreise? Have you just this one or many others?
I'm working through it slowly. So in varying degrees, I know everything before this.
Right, great. Okay. Well, here's just one thing to put into your mind in terms of looking at this. Is the seventh song of the 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, 24. Yeah. And one thing to put into your mind as you put them together is to remember that to sing for an hour and 10 or however long it takes, if you present it in one long expanse, is that this seventh song is you've only just started.
Yeah.
So in terms of your emotional temperature, as well as your vocal, how would I express it? Dilithium crystals. Are you a Star Trek man?
No, sadly
No,
not.
okay, that will mean nothing to you then. Your vocal stamina, let's use the word stamina, that's English.
Okay.
Your vocal stamina, this is the first time you, depending on what key you're singing in, you hit a high note in that last repeat, the demi-repeat reprise at the end there. You hit a high note. And if you work yourself up into a lather, you need to know that you've got within you, vocally and from a stamina point of view, generally speaking, you've got the rest of the cycle there.
Yeah, okay.
So I have grown used to being able to chart song number 7. I'm sort of like a miser, just handing out pennies. I'm just aware. Okay, not too much, not too much. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
Just in terms of the intense journey. Now, if you do present the song by itself, that's a different ball game. You can play with it differently, but just be aware of that as you put this all together.
Sure.
And I've got a thought that I'm just chasing off the top of that. No, okay. That thought will occur to me. I'm sure as we go through. I suppose part of it for me. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Before this lockdown happened, literally the week of the lockdown, I was going to be recording this with Ian Burnside, and we've had to put that on hold. So it's obviously very much in my mind as a piece anyway. And I wanted to tell you how useful it is to see someone else sing it, and work with you and see you sing it, because I suppose I'm beginning to get into a groove with the way I think about this, and very importantly, the way I feel about it, phrase by phrase. I'm getting into a bit of a groove, so it's really handy for me to work with someone else who does it differently, and then I can ask myself, why do I think my way is right or wrong or whatever, and what can I steal from you to inform my performances? Okay, so this is a normal and natural progression of just people learning from each other. Okay, so it's very, very handy you happen to present something from Winterreise. It's very handy for me right now. Thank you. So one of the things I've learnt about how I feel about this, about how this music makes me feel, is that the previous song is a song of getting a little bit stuck in terms of where it is. But so no, I can't. Sorry, phone call for me. You know, voice is off. And this sort of boom, plim, boom, plim, introduction to begin with, for me is like a sort of emotional constipation, and it's a sort of numbness.
Yeah.
That is something I've grown used to trying to put across. So for example, der du so lustig rauschtest, du helle wilde Fluss. If I try and sing that with no emotion whatsoever.
Okay.
Just a fun thing. It's a fun game. How little can you get away with? In the knowledge that the next thing you sing is marked sehr leise, really gently, and the piano part is 3, not 2, but 3 pianos. So however quietly and stilly, if that's a word, you've sung the first sentence, you've got to get even more quieter and stiller at this being, but you are at least on a monotone. Wie still bist du geworden, gibst keinen Scheidegruß. There's that kind of, I know, Berlin between the wars, slight sort of Uta Lemper, fishnet tights, cabaret feeling about it. Wie still bist du geworden. There's a kind of mesmerizing, hypnotic quality to that.
Yeah.
It's maybe not quite what Schubert had as his first thought, but just a way of being able to entice the listener to come into your world of cold and numbness. Okay, so a cappella, if you wouldn't mind, is that all right? Just to sing without this. No. Why don't we set the track going so that you can respond to the first 4 bars and see how numb you can be while being also energized in some way. We'll see. We'll play.
Rauschtest, du helle wilde Fluss, wie still bist du geworden, gibst keinen Scheidegruß. Mit harter starker Rinde hast du dich überdeckt, liegst kalt und unbeweglich
Great, let's hold it there. Lovely, because within that palette of numbness, then anything that you do decide to colour, and I say colour, I mean with the tiniest touch of colour, then begins to read more. And where we just stopped is where it then goes into the major, and you get whatever colour you add to the next bit will read even more. So, mit harte Starre, mit harte Starre, within this feeling of being really quite sort of emotionally numb, harte Starre Rinde, I really use those, the AR vowel sounds there to be extra bright and unpleasant, actually. Mit harte Starre Rinde hast du dich überdeckt. It's almost as if I'm commenting to the river, you seem to have chosen to coat yourself in this hard, starre, stiff crust, I notice. There's a sort of blame all the way through Winterreise. There is a feeling that you're stumbling through the snow and through the woods or whatever. You keep coming across things, inanimate objects, sometimes animate objects or whatever. You look at them and you think, oh my goodness, there's a frozen river, and how frozen and cold and unbearing it is. And I think that reminds me of me, or particularly of my heart. But kind of speaking to yourself in the third or second person, as it were. Second person. That reminds me of you, my heart.
Yeah.
So there's a feeling. If I said numb to begin with, mit harte Starre Rinde, you can add just a tiny colour of blame. You can choose this. You can have a feeling about this, and with blame comes in this next bit. In deine Decke grab ich mit einem spitzen Stein. This blame begins to warm into something from the major. You actually quite enjoy this feeling of finger wagging, finger pointing. I could take a really sharp stone and scrawl into it the name and the date of the, because you've carved your name in the linden tree, and that was in a moment of love. Now you're carving her name in the snow, and it becomes something quite maniacal. And the reason I bring that up is because at the end of this major section, Namen und Zahlen windet sich ein zerbrochener Ring. And you were absolutely alive in that, the delight in getting really with this stone.
Yeah.
Which leads me then to talk about the silence. It's 3 beats of silence on the page turn there. And how to handle it. Now, I was watching you very particularly in that bit. And what you did, which is a very natural thing, is to imagine the feeling of the next page.
Yeah.
And get yourself into it. So that's a choice.
Yeah.
There are other choices. One of them is to keep the audience in that feeling of, and then drop it completely.
Yeah, until you hear the sound. Yeah.
Dum bum, until you hear your pianist sing, bum 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 bum, and mein Herz, diesen Bache, is kind of coincidental. Oh my goodness! Look, I can see my own reflection in the. It's people like me often advise people like you to become more emotionally engaged in what you sing. That is the normal thing, and in a way, I am asking that of you, but also deliciously in that I can say, how about removing yourself also from it? Oh look, my heart. In this Bach, in this little brook, do you not recognise your own picture? Because then, ob's unter seiner Rinde, particularly the second time round, where he's given himself an extra bar of key change to get there, this feeling then of the blood boiling inside you, the anger, the bitterness, is a bit more self-indulgent. And I have to say, what I've grown used to as I sing that last high phrase, and I let the song go, he has 2 bars of bom, yabba-dum, bom, dabba-dum, bom, dabba-dum, bom, and then he goes bom, chi, The last couple of bars and that really slow spread chord. The last 3 bars of the piano postlude that is, for me, totally uncompromising. It gives a chance when you're not singing for you to eyeball the audience and put them under the most intense emotional pressure. And you know that at the end of an intense song like that, as everybody has a sort of a mental page turn for the next song, you normally hear this noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're kind of bit embarrassed and whatever.
Yeah.
But if you stare at them like a school teacher in that white hot intensity, they cannot make that noise. And then you go straight into the 8th song, which is one of the fast ones, and I can let the tension drop once the piano part for the next song begins. But in the silence of that, once the chord has been spread, and in the silence, I do not let them go. Cruelly so. Okay,
Yeah.
That is really delightful. Could you pick it up? Let's try a little bit a cappella, if you wouldn't mind. Are we still in pitch? In deine Decke grab ich.
Yeah.
Lovely. So your chance now to just enjoy just enjoy the sort of bitterness of this. Have fun with this. Here we go.
In deine Decke grab ich mit einem späten Stein, dem Namen meiner Liebsten, und Stund und Tag hinein.
Good. Let me just pause you there. That's great. There are sounds you can use to help you more.
Okay.
In deine Decke, the D and D of deine Decke, you can let that line up. Decke has got a double K in the middle, so you can have just more of it. In deine Decke grab, there's a little Decke grab ich. The B of grab is going to sound like a P instantly. Grab ich. The GR of grab is the feeling of in deine Decke grab ich. The T of mit, the way you have a slightly explosive T can be quite explosive because it's not pleasant. Mit einem spitzen Stein. The way my laptop should now be covered in a little thin layer of COVID probably, but bits of water because einem spitzen Stein, it's not pleasant. Den Namen meiner Liebsten. Oh, she was my Liebsten, was she? Not anymore. Und Stund und Tag, and this is the onset of obsessive behaviour. As you sing this number, particularly this middle bit when it's in the major, anybody in your audience who has a grounding in psychology, psychoanalysis, is busy taking notes. This person needs help. Yes, okay, yeah. Okay. So that kind of the delight in the meticulousness of it, that putting someone under pressure, that is the joy of this kind of this kind of experience. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to have to leave you there.
Yeah.
But what we're just talking about in emotional coldness, and then the ability to warm it up for nefarious purposes. I'd love you to have a little think about using that, and thinking also in the general scheme of things about where this is going to fit into 24. Those are the 2 things I'd love you to think about most.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Nice to meet you.
And you.
Good. Now, you've got Auf dem Fluss.
No, I've got Am Feierabend.
I beg your pardon. Okay, so that's same volume at least. That's very good. Now, that's just before then, isn't it? Here we go. Perfect. Have you got a backing track to sing to?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, without further ado, why don't you kick off, and we'll have a listen and see where we go.
Okay.
Hätt ich 1000 Arme zu rühren, könnt ich brausend die Rede führen, könnt ich wehen durch alle Haine, könnt ich drehen alle Steine, dass die schöne Müllerin merkt an meinen treuen Sinn, dass die schöne Müllerin merkt an meinen treuen Sinn. Ach, wie ist mein Arm so schwach, was ich hebe, was ich trage, was ich schneide, was ich trage, jede Knappe tut mir's nach, jede Knappe tut mir's nach. Und da sitz ich in der großen Runde, in den stillen, kühlen Feierstunde. Und der Meister spricht zu allen, euer Werk hat mir gefallen, euer Werk hat mir gefallen. Und das liebe Mädchen sagt, eine gute Nacht, eine gute Nacht. Hätt ich 1000 Arme zu rühren, könnt ich brausend die Rede führen, könnt ich wem durch alle Haine, könnt ich drehen alle Steine, dass die schöne Müllerin merkte meinen treuen Sinn, dass die schöne Müllerin merkte meinen treuen Sinn, dass die schöne Müllerin merkte meinen treuen Sinn.
Sorry, I was a bit out with the...
No, not at all, not at all. This is lockdown luxury. This is what we have. It's just a part of it. Is that computer generated, or is that someone recording it for you?
Computer generated, yeah.
Because there's a very interesting a difference there between a live person playing, even when you're not there.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it playing and it's therefore more metronomic, and that is a useful tool up to a certain extent, because I've been saying to students in the last few years, I've just been noting that of all the people in the colleges who rehearse with a metronome, singers are not amongst them. We just don't rehearse with metronomes. It's just not what we do. We may pick it up to see how fast the thing goes, and that's about it. Consequently, the rest of the faculty, the rest of the building, knows that singers have no concept of tempo. Just that they just put up with that. You know, we're going to go off on one, you know. And this is a shame. So there is something to be learnt from singing with the metronome, and then you can ditch it.
Okay, yeah.
By the way, just hugely enjoyable. Thank you very much. I should have started with that. Thank you for saying this to me. Great stuff. What you can learn for now, with the limitations of that accompanying tool you've got there, is that for you to appear to drive this piece, you need to be even more on the front foot. Because what you're aiming, what you're trying to aim for is the feeling, even with the breaths, hätte ich 1000 Arme zu rühren könnte ich. To get it on könnte ich in time, it's a time, rühren könnte ich. Rühren needs to be eager, and so you can just start flying. So if you can make it sound as though the computer-generated pianist is ever so slightly dragging on you, we're in. You know, that's great, because that'll just be fantastic live. You don't want to hurry, which is why a metronome is so interesting. A human listening to you hurry will try and catch up. The whole piece will get faster and faster. But to give the illusion of I don't know what word to use, but urgency, that'll do. You can be in time, but on the front foot. Job done. So, you know, any practice you have, further practice you do with that backing tape, that is where you can be in that one.
Okay.
How many of the rest of the songs from this do you know?
Only a few. When I say a few, probably about I think I've sung another two of them. I think that, Das Wandern, Sort of Wohin, and then Trockene Blumen right further on.
Right. Yeah. Yes, further on. So right, that's great. Well, okay. So with the first two that you just mentioned there, you have a little sketch of where you are. This is the fifth song in. So you know it's early days yet, and you also know with Trockene Blumen, you know where you're going to end up in another 15 songs' time.
Yeah.
One piece of advice I actually got from Rob Murray, the tenor Rob Murray, when I was asking him, he had recorded it, and I was early doors with this, and I was talking to him about the whole thing, and one thing he said to me was, don't give things away too soon. We know, the audience who come to this, generally speaking, know that it's going to end in tears. But at song 5, I believe you still got a great deal of the spirit of Das Wandern still inside you. Everything that makes you currently you, young and full of life, as opposed to an old has-been like myself, it is still there. And I can hear in the opening 2.5 bars the piano part, jump, 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 jump. This sound that I think can cause a singer to put on a singer's frown and be dark and kind of wrestling with this piece. Hätte ich 1000 Arme zu rühren. You can be fierce and I think, I just don't think that fits in the overall shape.
Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's just a slight danger about taking a piece out of context. Discuss.
Yeah.
So for me, when you first mentioned Das schöne Müllerin, and it starts into the major, I think that could be the emotional position of the song.
Yes.
A little bit more. You can. It's up to you experimenting. That the thing that has set this song in motion is meeting her.
Yeah.
And you will realise that by the bottom of the first page. But don't be too seduced by the sounds as if you're going to sing something about crushing of bones and but it isn't that song. Yeah. Yes. So your frustration at not being one of the alpha male types like the other lads in the mill.
Yeah.
You're the sensitive poetic sort.
Yes.
Might break a fingernail picking up those heavy sacks, but your frustration, I think, isn't quite as intense. It doesn't need to be quite as intense.
Okay, yeah.
So, when you get down to Das die schöne Müllerin, and it slips into the major there.
Yes.
Das die schöne, there's a great deal you can do with that word, schöne.
Yeah.
Das die schöne Müllerin. It's a double L with the umlaut, which I think makes the vowel short, but don't quote me on that. Get help from a German coach just to make sure that it isn't Müllerin, but Müllerin. So I just flag that up to be checked. Das die schöne Müllerin, but it's the first time you get to say her, not her name,
but
her job description. Yeah, exactly. Das die schöne Müllerin. Merkte meinen treuen Sinn. So again, the thing again to sing about in Ach, that little section when it goes back into the minor, the idea that there's lots of lads around, 2, 3, 10, whatever, and you want her to notice you.
Yes.
Maybe she's noticed you. So the word meinen is set at the weaker part of the bar.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it is within your power to grab the M on the way through and just make sure that it's meinen, treuen Sinn. Yeah, exactly. And she will see that the others have their stuff going on in their heads, their Sinn, if you like.
Yeah.
But yours is true. Theirs is a bit shoddy, frankly, as you look at them. They're a bit empty. But you have depth.
Yeah.
And because you repeat it twice in the first verse, you're going to repeat it twice when it comes down to the end.
Yes, yeah.
You have a chance to emphasize each time through maybe something different, a little part of meinen treuen Sinn, meinen treuen Sinn, meinen treuen. Entirely up to you. Do you mind singing a bit a cappella for me, please?
Absolutely fine. I'm happy with that.
Right. Let's just set up to the top. Supposing I reset you with that. I say, you've just seen her. You've just realised she's kind of everything you've been searching for when you set out with your Wanderstab earlier on.
Yeah.
It's all there in that one person. And so let's try singing the first verse particularly with that excitement.
Yes. Yeah.
Glasses on.
Hätt ich 1000 Arme zu rühren, könnt ich brausen die Rede führen, könnt ich wehen durch alle Haine, könnt ich drehen alle Steine, dass die schöne Müllerin merkt an meinen treuen Sinn, dass die schöne Müllerin merkt an meinen treuen Sinn. Sorry,
yeah. No worries, so don't worry. Great. Think about other things. This is great. This lifts, and I begin to see a kind of, I don't know, something else is basically what I'm saying.
Yes, yeah.
This is part of the interpretive choices that you're allowed to make. You're allowed to reject all my ideas as well. Incidentally, just remember that. That makes it cool.
Yes.
Yeah, we're good. So, given how far in advance of the creation of Superman on a whole comic book superhero franchise, this poem is written. Yeah. The idea of you having the strength of 1,000 arms is kind of weird, and that's part of it. Hätte ich 1000 Arme, 1000, nicht 100, aber 1000 Arme zu rühren, könnte ich was? I could leap tall buildings in a single bound. I could have X-ray vision, you know. I could brausend die Räder führen. Könnte ich wehen durch alle Haine. Könnte ich drehen alle Steine. Do you see the rhetoric of that repetition of alle?
Yes.
And that Schubert has used a simple phrase to put alle at the top of it. Könnte ich wehen durch alle Haine. Könnte ich drehen alle Steine. That's something you can grab and make a point of. But the point is that you're having fun imagining, given that you really are this wonderful aesthete who has turned up, and of course when the huntsman comes along later on, he's just brawn, and that's kind of not sensitive me. So this idea of your being superhuman, and it's just kind of wonderful.
Yeah.
Right? Grab that, sing it here we go again, exactly the same, please, a cappella.
Hätt ich 1000 Arme zu rühren, könnt ich brausen die Rede führen, könnt ich wehen durch alle Haine, könnt ich drehen alle Steine, dass die schöne Müllerin merkt an meinen treuen Sinn, dass die schöne Müllerin merkt an meinen treuen Sinn.
Well done, well done. This is terrific stuff. Let me just sharpen that up with one or two very specific tricks, as it were. The mellifluousness you have on Das die schöne Müllerin, the phrases after that, is really appealing. That's really silky smooth singing you have there, and that fits the mood of Das die schöne Müllerin, what we talked about before, or what I talked about. So that's going really well. So how about what you were aiming for in Hätt ich 1000 Arme, switching the dial up on that a little bit by emphasizing the harder consonants more. Hätt ich 1000, the T of 1000, I can sometimes sharpen that, but with the tiniest of gaps before it. Hätt ich 1000 is singing straight through. Hätt ich 1000 is just a minuscule gap before 1000, so the T really fires. Könnte ich brausen, so the BR and the rolled R. Könnte ich brausen die Rede. And I would go for the adverb more than the noun. Könnte ich brausen die Rede führen, or könnte ich brausen die Rede führen? That's a choice there, but you can vary that next time, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
You can go for Rede rather than brausen, but you've got a choice there. Könnte ich wehen durch alle Haine, the H of Haine. You can use, könnte ich drehen, you can use the DR. Alle Steine, the S and T of Steine. All those little things you can do, so that what I'm looking at when I happen to glance back at the copy, what I'm looking at is the exclamation marks.
Yes.
At the end of it. And singing punctuation, it's quite a fun thing. Full stops are easy. Commas are quite something because you just breathe at a comma.
Yeah.
Question marks, it depends where the music goes.
Yeah.
Similarly with exclamation marks, it's kind of, how do you sing? Könnte ich drehen alle Steine? It's possible to leave the note of Steine hanging in the air.
Yeah.
Kind of, wow. And if you can find something that's full of wow for the first few lines, then when you get das die schöne and the mellifluous you have already is different, and then you can show that the reason I'm going to stand out to this woman, apart in and amongst these lads, is that there is a truth and a beauty within me that if she's got eyes, she will notice and see.
Yeah.
And when she says to them later on, Allen eine gute Nacht, she says to all of them, but really she's singing to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes. And particularly, this is the game you play with that bit, particularly when she sings it the second time.
Yes. Yeah.
So, one more time, if you will indulge me. From the top, a cappella, Hetty.
Okay.
Hätt ich 1000 Arme zu rühren, könnt ich brausend die Rede führen, könnt ich wehen durch alle Haine, könnt ich drehen alle Steine, dass die schöne Müllerin merkt an meinen treuen Sinn, dass die schöne Müllerin merkt an meinen treuen Sinn.
Great. Well done. Fantastic. You're doing really well here. Notice that when you repeat das die schöne, that for a start you can if you wish at any point put more of a D on the front of das and more of a double S, das die schöne, to make it bounce more. You can choose to do that because it gives you a difference between the mellifluousness you had before.
Okay, yeah.
Das die schöne Müllerin. Now that rhythm, tum ta kadum, is a device for you to use if you wish. That syncopation, that bounce. There's something about her name, or it's not her name, but that makes the rhythm bounce, and that's kind of something you can use as well. Yeah. All right. Now I'm going to fast forward through all this. I love what you did with the Meister and the voice from him. That's great. I love what you did with her and second guessing the computer generated score. The question I want to leave you with is what it means at the end for you when the music goes and he puts that piano chord down.
Yeah.
You sing a phrase, a descending phrase in the minor that could be anything from realization, a little touch of despair, could be any one of a number of things.
Yeah.
I don't need you to answer in words.
Okay.
But when you sing it, particularly with a live accompanist who can wait for you, and the two of you can play off each other as to what does that end mean? And why does the end go jump, jump? What are those for you? And how does that get you into the next song? Those are questions that you can only answer by singing it, okay?
Yes.
But if you've got an idea, then you can play with it.
Yeah.
Great. Terrific stuff. And I'm running out of time. I kind of run out of time. Just one other thing. Was ich hebe, was ich trage, was ich schneide. The rhetorical device of just going round and round. I did this, I do that, I do this, I do that. Just be aware of that. And it's the same as alle Steine, alle Heine, and all that stuff. Just the rhetoric of repetition like that.
Yeah. Lovely
singing. Great stuff. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you, Roddy. Thank you very much.
See you in the real world. See you on the other side.
Oh, hopefully. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Great. Hello then, Caleb. Hello. Lovely to meet you. And very, I see you've very cleverly chosen a background there that is kind of plain and mysterious. Yeah, exactly. And it could be anywhere. That's very good. And look, you've got Mondnacht from the Liederkreis, yes?
I have, yeah.
And are you going to sing that a cappella? Have you got a backing track of some sort?
No, I've got a backing track to sing too.
Very good, because of all songs, this would be quite well. You know, many of them are surreal without accompaniment, but this particularly so. That's fantastic. Well, look, why don't you kick straight off and sing to me, and then we'll just go from there.
Great.
Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst, dass sie im Blitten Schimmer von ihm nur träumen müsst. Die Luft ging durch die Felder, die Ähren wogten sacht. Es rauschten leis die Wälder, so sternklar war die Nacht. Und meine Seele spannte weit ihre Flügel aus, flog durch die stillen Lande, als Flagge sie nach Haus.
Lovely, Caleb. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. That's a particularly appreciated gift from you to me in this lockdown time. That for 2.5 minutes, we were able to slip this lockdown and fly. Okay, so that's great. Can I just ask you? Can you hear my wife hoovering next door?
No, not at all, actually.
Great, lovely. That's another lockdown gift. Excellent. Well, we'll just carry on. Give me a wave if you suddenly hear something really weird from my end. It's just the Hoover, I promise.
I've sent all my family out, so you won't...
Oh, very good. Yeah, exactly. That's even better. You get a little bit of privacy there. Now, look, this piece, I think, is so much about atmosphere that we can't help but talk about that, even though you are in your room, locked in. I mean, the irony couldn't be darker, you know. But and also, so much of that atmosphere comes from your interaction and your enjoyment of the piano part, and it's someone's recorded that for you rather than it being computer generated. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's at least a performance that you're hearing, rather than just something created by a machine. But and even so, it's so difficult to access atmosphere without having your person with you. So I just wanted to say that it's something for you to look forward to, and to remind you of what we miss when we do this by ourselves.
Yeah.
So I certainly understand that. The building blocks of this song, you've got there. It's like so you've learnt it well and you sing it well and sorted, and it for me is now ready to take quite a substantial leap into a new realm. Mm-hmm. And that realm is for me is to do with the atmosphere and for what you want to say with it.
Yeah.
I think that's where I find most of the interest, most of the excitement in music making. You know, once you've learnt it, you know, to make sure that all the German grammar ties up and that you've pronounced your umlauts well and you breathe in the right places. That's great. Okay, done. Tick. But now it's all about what it means for you. And weirdly enough, I think I could guess that you were going to give me a performance that is sort of starved of atmosphere, necessarily so in these circumstances. I could guess that from the breath that you took before you started singing the first word.
Yeah.
And with at the risk of sounding a little bit of arty-farty, I have to relate to you that I was on a camping trip by myself in the very middle of Germany once. I managed to escape the rehearsals I was doing. I went out for a couple of nights, and I never sleep particularly well in the tent. And I managed to walk out of the campsite up to the top of the hill. This is about 3 in the morning or so, and look down this tiny little village underneath something I'd been walking during the daytime. So there I was at 3 a.m., something like that, unable to sleep, and I was able to walk so clearly because the moon was shining. It was pretty well a full moon, and it was not quite, but similar to walking in the sun. Such was the clarity and everything. The whole. I've got a photograph of the view in daytime, and I could see that view, but it was all in silver and darkness, like someone had etched it in some way. And this song, of course, just came to mind. I was looking at this scene and going, this is what he meant.
Yeah. Okay.
This is what he's talking about. Yeah. Now, up until an experience like that, you have to rely on your imagination.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's what, before I had that experience, of course, every time I sang this, I just imagined what it was like. But sometimes in the repertoire we sing, you get to see it, and you get a profound understanding of what a poet and thereafter the composer meant by a thing. And you sing from here.
Yeah.
In a different way, okay? So.
Okay, yeah.
Message number 1, go out at 3 a.m. on the full moon and go and have a look at them. Okay, that's the first thing to do. Okay, going back to the song itself, there's something in the full bar before you sing, not the bar that you sing, but the full bar before you sing. What key have you got there?
I'm in B major.
So it must be a row of F sharps then before you come in, yeah?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. So when those F sharps first start, the pianist has got a whole bar of them before then the G sharp starts as well.
Yep.
And as that happens, I'm guessing you've got all that time to take this breath in, a really slow breath, which is on the vowel of S.
Okay.
So that when you actually start singing, you're already filled with this inhalation of, oh my God, or whatever it is you want to sing about. So let's do this bit a cappella.
Yep.
Although actually, I want you to spend a bar and a half imagining the F sharps. Can you breathe in with the S in your mouth? Here we go.
Es war, als hätt der Himmel.
Okay, so the first thing I want you to remember is that the quality of the breath that you take in, particularly at the beginning, certainly at the beginning of each verse, and actually for every phrase you sing, the quality of the breath you take is hugely important to how you sing the phrase.
Okay.
That's the first thing. The second thing to point out is just the simple syntax. Es wär, comma, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst. So after Himmel, those two quaver rests there, you have to think, brackets, sing, straight through that, yes? Okay. So, in order just to remind you of that, can I ask you to do Masterclass trick number 17B, which is to read the poem to me, please?
Es war, als hätt...
Oh, hang on. I beg your pardon. I thought I saw them like that. That's with me, my reading glasses. You go. You were correct.
Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst.
Good. Now you're reading it. You're reading it like a poet, like poetry. You're reading it as though it rhymes and it's in lines. Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst. Okay. Yeah. But the sense is, it was as though the heaven was kissing the earth. Mm-hmm. Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst.
Okay.
Yeah.
Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst.
Als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst.
Als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst.
Good, lovely. Now, what you did instinctively there is you gave, just with a little bit of inflection, you gave die Erde a little bit of extra emphasis, yes?
Okay. Yep.
It might have been coincidentally accidental, but you did it. Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde. So what you've said to me, it was as though the heaven, the earth, quietly kissed. Okay? Now, of all the things you could emphasize in that, der Himmel, die Erde, still, of all those things, I'd just like to ask you, which would you like most to emphasize? Which do you think poetically is the most beautiful part of the image in that line?
Probably the quietly kissed, so the still geküsst.
Yeah, yes. Now, incidentally, for me, there are no right or wrong answers in this game, okay? When I ask someone just sort of riff like that, there's no... But I often am actually quietly steering you towards something, and you've just guessed it, okay? The most poetical thing... heaven is a poetical image anyway. Heaven and earth, quite poetical, you know, 3 out of 5 on the poetic scale. But the fact that they kiss, it was as though the heaven and the earth were silently kissing. And it's still geküsst is for me the poetic impact of this.
Okay.
So, in that first sentence, I want you to be aware of the comma after it was as though.
Yep.
And I want you to know that the next bit is all one sentence. Als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst. Okay. And on still, you'll have that little mordant there to help you just do something with it. But really, it's how you sing geküsst that's going to give it. And you can load up the K, geküsst, and let the K last a long time, geküsst. You know that the S is going to last a while, and then you can just crown it all with this little sibilanty wet T, the T that is like a kiss, geküsst. Geküsst. Okay? Your turn. Could you say it once for me? Es war, as poetically as you can. Here we go.
Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst.
Good, lovely. And you're really doing well. I would counsel you, I would suggest that the rolled R at the end of es war is probably not necessary.
Okay.
Es war, als hätt, and it's to get the airiness in it for one thing. Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst. Okay, this is real Mick Jagger stuff into the microphone here. Just you need to caress the microphone and thereby, of course, the audience. But anyway, your go. Just flirt with it. Here we go.
Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst.
Oh, now that is poetry.
Okay.
Yes, bingo. That's fantastic. And again, even when you say it, and I'll ask you to say it one more time. Even when you say it, but especially when you sing it, it's about the breath before you start.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you've just done, you're going to do again, but I want you to encapsulate the whole of that feeling in the way you breathe before you speak. Your go.
Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Print that.
Okay.
That's gorgeous. And the same is dass sie im I can't see the umlauts, is it? Yeah, umlauts. Dass sie im Blütenschimmer von ihm nur träumen müsst. It's just the same. It's the same gliding, gorgeous gliding feeling. Breathe, and then could you speak me the second half of that line, please?
The line beginning with
Das sie. Starting from the.
Dass sie im Blütenschimmer von ihm nur träumen müsst.
Good. Blütenschimmer. It's a great thing to say. Blütenschimmer. That you can hum more on the M's. Shimmer. Again, the R at the end of shimmer, I don't think you necessarily need to roll, because it'll help you shimmer von ihm. Yeah? And that foot of von just glides long. Dass sie, just try and say this again. Dass sie.
Dass sie im Blütenschimmer von ihm nur träumen müsst.
And this, the German way of just making sure that the von ihm, that the ihm is separate like that, just gives it a little bit of denunciation. Von ihm. Right, we've got barely a minute or two left, or maybe even 60 seconds left, 30 seconds left. Can you just sing me Es war, es hätt, and see if you can get that quality of poetry that you had just there.
Should we do it with the piano?
Let's do it without, just to save a bit of time. I would love to do it with the piano, but just save a bit of time. Let's go for it.
Es war, als hätt der Himmel die Erde still geküsst.
Great. Okay, just hold on there. So, my advice to you for this is, the whole poem is as gorgeous and beautiful like that. Find out for yourself why it changes in the third verse, und meine Seele. Find a reason to change the melodic line there. Schumann had a reason, so you find out what it is.
Yep.
But basically, I want to know, from the first breath you take, that the song is going to be magical.
Okay.
Okay? And absolutely fly. And if you get at all stuck, set your alarm, 3 in the morning, full moon, go out and have a look.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Terrific, Caleb. I'll see you on the other side at some point.
Cheers, Roddy. Take
Well
care.
done. Bye.
Bye.